Good evening, everyone. Good evening, members. Good evening, any members of the public watching. I'm Councillor Alan Law. I'm Chairman of OSMC. I am, however, endeavouring to take a short break, and I'm not at my normal place of work. I have already experienced a little bit of technical problems. So as I anticipated and pre-planned, I am going to hand the chair of the meeting over to the Vice Chairman this evening, Councillor Lee Dillon. Lee, if I could just hand over to you, and good luck.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, welcome everybody to the meeting. In addition to the members of the Overview and Scrutiny Commission, we also have the following members of the executive in attendance. We have Councillor Lynn Doherty, welcome Lynn, Councillor Ross McKinnon, hi Ross, and Councillor Joanne Stewart, hi Joe. We also have the following officers attending at various points during the meeting. We have Paul Anstey, Head of Public Protection, Kathleen Bogus, Performance Manager, Pete Campbell, Head of Children and Family Services, Sarah Clark, the Services Director, Kevin Griffin, Head of Customer Services and ICT, Joseph Holmes, the Executive Director for Resource, Gary Lugg, Head of Development and Planning, Phil Rumans, our Digital Services Manager, Gordon Oliver, our Principal Policy Officer, and James Townsend from Democratic Services taking the minutes. So thank you everybody for your attendance this evening. Gordon, do we? Thank you. So,
sorry, I was just muted there. So the standard Zoom reminders have been shown on screen now. In addition, I would advise members that if it becomes necessary for you to telephone into the meeting, you will not be able to signal to speak. So once everyone who has raised the Zoom hand has spoken, the chairman will invite those who have telephoned in to speak in order. Any voting will take place by a show of actual hands. Members will be asked if they wish to vote for or against the proposal or abstain. Anyone wishing for a named vote to be recorded in the minutes must indicate this before the vote is taken. If we need to adjourn the meeting at any point, the chairman will adjourn the meeting and will advise the commission of the revised time and date of the meeting. If it's a short adjournment, you will be able to rejoin the Zoom meeting. Otherwise, a fresh appointment will be sent out. Do members have any questions about the way in which the meeting will be conducted?
good. Okay, thank you. So moving on then, item 1 is apologies for absence. Gordon?
I haven't received any apologies. Except in terms of officers, Pete Campbell has said that he is unable to attend.
Okay, thank you. Item 2 is the minutes to approve as correct. So if we go through those page by page. So first of all is page 1 or page 5, depending on what document pack you're looking at, but the first page of the minutes. The second page concerning London Road. And the third page, page 7. Okay, and page 8, which is the LGA section and performance of quarter 4. No, okay, page 9, page 10, and page 11. Okay, so do I see a proposer for those minutes?
I'll propose, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And do I see a seconder for those? Councillor Jeff Brooks, thank you. And can I see a show of hands from members of the committee? Thank you. I think that's all in favour. So I will sign those and return those to the office. Okay, moving on to item 3, declarations of interest. Does anybody have any? Councillor Marino.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, as usual, later on in the financial reports, there's mentions of the Eastern Area Pro and the negotiations for the lease with Towers Parish Council. Just want to make it known again that I'm on that parish council.
Sure. Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on then. Item 4 is petitions. Gordon, do we have any petitions?
No, we haven't received any petitions.
Thank you. And item 5 is actions arising from the previous minutes. I think it's a treat having a paper agenda, but it's getting used to actually handling paper again rather than flicking up and down the screen. That's the The skill to turn a page. Okay, so first one is item 18, Catalin.
Yes, hello. We are working to bring a report at the January meeting of OSMC.
Thank you. And item 20 is with Stephen, and that's due to report today. Item 21 is complete. Item 22 was sent out on the 29th. Item 23 is on me. I didn't fill in the second page of the form, but it's now with Olivia in our group office. So Alan, it will be winging its way to you very shortly. Okay, Councillor Stewart, on that action.
Sorry, Councillor Dillon, I was a little tardy. It's actually reference item 21 and 22.
Okay.
Just for clarity, they reference the revenue financial performance provisional outturn report, and actually it was the 1920 performance report Q4. So I just thought we ought to make sure that we're clear on which reports it was.
Where it's duplicated.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then item 24, Garth, or Councillor Simpson, sorry. Oh, you're on mute, Garth.
If I can help him, Chairman, he did send me an email as he was charged to do with a list of comments.
Yes.
Good. Okay, good. So we can consider those within work plans.
Yes, I will pass those on to, I only got them this afternoon, I'll pass them on to Gordon.
Good. Yeah, thank you. Moving on then, item 6 is the ICT Digital Task Group report. So I know Councillor Marino chaired this task group on behalf of OSMC. So Tom, if I can hand over to you to introduce and take the committee through the report, please.
Thanks, Chairman. Yeah, so as you said, this task group, just want to say, first of all, very, very appreciative of the group bearing with me, bearing that I've never chaired a committee of any kind before. I felt that it was a pretty constructive, collaborative, cross-party effort to go through the strategy. There was a lot of stuff to go through, myself included. There was obviously some new things we had to get our heads around. I felt that the contributions made by everyone benefited by a lot of experience and insight brought by everyone else. I'd like to thank Kevin and Phil, who took a lot of questions, most of which were prepared by Gordon, which were answered pretty well. As a result, there were changes made to the strategy, including some references to procuring commercial off-the-shelf software as a key principle, making sure that sufficient funding and resources available to deliver the project. Minor amendments made to the formatting, but obviously that's just quite minor. As is made clear in the report, we've also, the group has made it clear that we want to keep the group going to sort of keep tabs on the strategy as it works, as it goes forward. So I know this is quite a lot of detail, and that's just a brief sort of overview. I mean, like I said, the group's happy to keep on. Obviously, if there's any questions, then me or the officers involved will be happy to take them.
Lovely, thank you for that. So members, do you have any questions? I see Councillor Brooks with your hand up. Councillor Brooks.
Not so much a question, Chairman. I thank Tom for the introduction, and he shouldn't have anything to be ashamed about in terms of his first chairmanship, because he handled it admirably. I think that I am concerned, and it is in the paperwork, about the resources being provided for what is an ambitious plan. And Kevin answered this next point I'm going to make, Chairman. I'd like you perhaps to ask, through you, ask Kevin again. A lot of the plan is front-loaded. There's an awful lot that gets achieved in the first 18 months. I can't see it necessarily referred to in the report, but I might have missed it. But it's very ambitious in that first period, a lot going on, And if we miss the first 12 months, we get behind, it starts to undermine the the integrity of the report. So that's an issue for me, and the resources. But a good piece of work done over 4 meetings, I feel, and a good report as a result of it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. Kevin, do you want to come in response to that?
Yeah, I'm happy to, Chair. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Brooks did ask me this question during the task group meetings, and I think the answer that I gave at the time is that with anything, when you've got a plan that spans a number of years, you've always got a more detailed view of those tasks that are in the early stages. So I think the front-loaded plan is probably more a reflection of the detail that we have and the plans we have ready to go, rather than we've loaded everything in the front. So I think, 6 months in, we'll start to see the next tasks. What we are doing to give us a better chance of delivering these projects is starting to engage people from outside. So we are making some inquiries of an outside consultancy to help us with the Office 365 rollout, for example. So we've had some recent discussions with them. So we are taking steps to supplement our resources.
Thank you for that. Does anyone else have any questions on the paper? Councillor Law?
Yes, thank you, Tim. Rather than questions, comments. First of all, I'd like to say and endorse Councillor Brooks' comment about Tom's chairmanship. From what I could see and from the feedback I got, Tom has got nothing to be concerned about. A future chairman and leader, perhaps in the making. Thank you, Tom. One thing that I felt was missing from the report, and it was implied, I think, in the terms of reference. And I should also say I'm very glad that we're going to be continuing to monitor the rollout of the IT strategy, because it's directly related to the point I'm about to make. I was disappointed that I didn't see a 5 and a 10-year vision of what IT is going to look like structurally. How much, what preference are we going to give if we have a choice between cloud and server-based applications? What's our preference going to be? What's that going to look like? Disappointed as well that there was nothing in there about shared services. And I know we have a shared services paper later on, and that maybe it does relate, but disappointed that we're not really taking, there seemed to be nothing about, these are the aspects, these are applications we could possibly share with other people. Or maybe even, look at the whole thing being shared. I always feel personally that 6 unitaries across Berkshire had 6 ICT departments, and do we really need 6 is a question. Those are the sort of questions I would like to have seen addressed, and I hope they will be addressed going forward.
Lovely, thank you for that, Councillor Law. Councillor Brooks, you want to come back in?
Well, when Berkshire County Council went, we knew there'd be 6 of everything, didn't we? And it would cost more money. And here we are 22 years later talking about it. I think, to answer Councillor Law through you, Chairman, we saw our terms of reference, and I take your point, as looking at the detail of the plan. In terms of shared services, I feel it's more of a strategic aspect of the council and how it wants to handle all of its departments. So I think that was a reason why we didn't get more, what should I say, ambitious to say, should we throw it all up in the air and start again? We actually took the paper and said, how can we improve it, support it, take it apart, put it back together. So yes, we were more micro than you might have thought we should be, but that's the rationale behind it, Councillor Law.
Thank you for that, Councillor Brooks. And I think actually that your recommendations from your task group, they were adopted in the final version of the digital strategy. So it shows the value of that micro analysis of it as well, that the executive took on board those views. If I don't see any more comments on this one, I think that the one from myself is around the governance of around reviewing it. So is it going to be once every 6 months? Are you going to bring a paper back to OSMC, once every 6 months, once every 12 months through the life of it? And so it'd be good just to see that bottomed out probably between now and the next meeting with the chairman of the OSMC as well.
Chairman, there's a couple of hands up. Councillor Cole, Councillor Marino.
Oh, well, sorry. Councillor Cole? Are they virtual hands? Because if they're virtual hands, I'm not seeing them on my screen.
Okay.
It's the blue hand.
Yeah, they're not showing. Okay, but sorry, Councillor Cole?
Thank you, Chairman. My comments are in some ways quite similar to those of Councillor Lord. I was looking for a rather higher level approach to this. It's not the first time that OSMC has looked at this subject. You'll find that there was a OSMC in the guise of the Resources Select Committee looked at it on the 17th of January 2017. The report suggests that this is a new strategy. I'm not convinced that our strategy has changed enormously since 2017, but really. Though my views have changed a bit over time, but we're still at a point where you can find phraseology in council documents like disjointed services continue to make sharing information difficult, that sort of stuff. Integration remains challenging. I'm afraid I still see these as issues with our strategy. A different angle, Section 517, response to question 7, project management. I thought that wording left a few openings. Project management was the main issue we found looking at the LRIE story. I'd have hoped the phraseology used in this report had been a little stronger, remembering the keenness shown by one or two members of that task group on the subject. I do think there's a lot of good in the council strategy, for example, the intent to ensure that there are different options, particularly for those that are less inclined or unable to use the internet. And it's great to see what was done to keep this show on the road during the pandemic. I would have just preferred to see this approach challenged a bit more by the task group. Still, it's great that they're going to stay involved. I hope they will, over the coming months or years, look at the reintegration of currently effectively separated parts of ICT, perhaps a single web-based platform approach. We haven't quite got there yet. And the sort of stuff that Alan was talking about, sharing, maybe outsourcing. I'm not personally a fan of outsourcing because of past experience. All of this, of course, comes up again in agenda item 7. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. I can see that Councillor Marino has got his hand up in the virtual form. And I've seen that Councillor Brooks has signalled to speak again. Tom, did you want to come in at the end to summarise, or do you want to come in on some points you've heard now?
I can come in at the end, that's fine.
Okay, so if I can go to Councillor Brooks then I'll go to you, Tom, to summate. Thanks.
It's interesting. I don't want to appear defensive here, but Councillor Cole, who I've got a lot of respect for, says well, he'd like to see us doing more challenge. He wasn't in the meetings and we did a lot of challenge. Let me give him an example when he talks about disjointed. I was at pains to check with Kevin Griffin that we were not duplicating records all over the place of people's names, addresses and details, which we had when I was looking at this 10 years ago. So there was a lot of probing and some reassurance, and I'd pass this back to Kevin again, Councillor Cole, to say this was challenged, this was probed, and if it isn't in the report, it's because we were satisfied that that was handled and not an issue. The other point about looking at it more holistically, strategically, and the councillor was saying, well, should we use the cloud? He knows as well as I do, given how long he's been in IT and how long I have, that there's new techniques and services and solutions coming along pretty darn regularly. So to talk about a 10-year strategy, it has to be very, very high level, given the techniques and technical solutions that come along. Who would have said in 2002 that by 2008 we'd all be walking around with a mobile phone as in a radio? So, you know, stay a little bit loose rather than giving a 10-year firm view of how our ICT strategy will go. I'm sounding a bit too defensive. so I'm going to stop now. But I'm trying to explain a couple of things and why their perception may not be quite right.
Okay, and as always, Councillor Brooks, you've got a flurry of responses now. So, but Councillor Cole, have you got your hand up fresh, or is that from the previous time? Okay, so I'll go to you, then Councillor Law, and then to Tom.
I wasn't going to bother to mention this, but I did actually ask to be interviewed for this session, and that was acknowledged.
Not in the report.
Unfortunately, I wasn't interviewed for this session. I checked that with Councillor Law, and he remembers that. I did actually ask to be included because I have some fairly strong views. My phraseology, for what it's worth, was quoted from a document that I read the other day. I'm not going to say what it was, but I did have a good reason for saying it. So, you know, there are different sides to the story, but we all look forward to seeing what happens over the next year or two.
Thank you. Councillor Law.
Yes, thank you. Just in response, I'm not looking for a detailed 5 or 10 year plan. What I was looking for was assurance that the ICT is actually looking at all these options. There is cloud options, there's roll your own applications, there's buying standard applications. There's all sorts of various options. And yes, there are new ones coming along. What I just didn't see in the strategy was we're looking at them and we're looking at the pros and the cons. And that's what I was looking for. I need assurance that that process is taking place and will take place.
Okay. And over to you then, Councillor Marino, please, and then we'll take a vote on the recommendations.
Thanks, Chairman. Yeah, thanks everyone for the comments, especially ones about me personally, very appreciated. Ari, the logistics of the group going forward, obviously take that offline with the chairman and obviously the other members to discuss, sort of discuss how often we're going to meet, all that kind of stuff as we go forward. Just want to say again, actually, fully thanks to everyone again involved for all their work, the officers, especially Gordon, especially for writing up the report and everything. And obviously, as the task group goes forward, happy to take any other members' comments on board. And Councillor Cole, if you do want to sort of be more involved, then I'm more than happy to sort of facilitate that in any way I can.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So, Tom, do you want to propose the recommendations? I'm sure that we note the report and that we look to set up a review into the future. Sure, that gets a proposal from yourself.
Yeah, happy to propose.
Yeah, and I'll second that from the chair. And everyone in favour? Sorry, Steve, were you going to ask a question on the vote? No, you're voting in favour. Okay, all those in favour?
Yeah, we're just going to second that as well.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay, so moving on then to item 7. This is the shared services report, and I'm going to hand over to Gordon, please.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll just fairly quickly try and introduce the report. The purpose of the report is to provide the Commission with an overview of the Council's existing shared services and to provoke discussions on whether additional services should be shared with other authorities. A list of current shared services provided in Appendix A is not meant to be a definitive list, but it just serves to highlight the breadth of services where sharing arrangements are in place. These agreements have been put in place for a variety of reasons, such as delivering cost savings, delivering improved customer service, improving service capabilities, flexibility and resilience. Key partnerships include the Berkshire Shared Agreements, Building Control Solutions, Public Protection Partnership and the Joint Emergency Planning Unit. The Berkshire Shared Agreements were set up on the demise of Berkshire County Council. They're mostly still going and appear to be working well, and most are regularly assessed and tested. One thing I would say is that the coroner service was one area that was potentially flagged as having some rising costs with some governance that could do with looking at in more detail. The other 3 services were actually subject to a new ways of working review, which is an internal process. And this highlighted a number of issues which are set out in paragraphs 531 to 534. The review concluded that while there were some issues with these services, the shared service models were still considered to be appropriate. The report also outlines feasibility work undertaken to investigate the potential for sharing a number of key services across the Council, including HR, ICT, legal, and planning. Discussions have taken place to varying degrees, with legal being the most in-depth, but ultimately no new agreements have been put in place for these services. This has been for a variety of reasons, such as the lack of a clear business case, incompatibility in ways of working, ICT issues, or political concerns. However, there is still evidence of joint working with neighbouring authorities going on, particularly on planning and certain aspects of legal services. The report goes on to look at national best practice, drawing on information provided on the Local Government Association website, and Table 5.2 provides a high-level summary of partnerships currently in place across England as a whole, and it gives an idea as to the services that are most frequently shared and the levels of savings delivered. The LGA also produced a report on shared services to highlight examples of best practice, and we've listed the main findings in our reports, including key factors identified as being necessary for shared services to succeed. Since the LGA report is now 8 years old, some further work was undertaken to look at how some of the best practice case studies have developed over time, including Hoople Limited and LGSS. In both cases, we found that they had encountered difficulties and had not delivered the anticipated benefits of the original business case. And in the case of LGSS, the bulk of the shared services were in the process of being dissolved. Our report concludes that there are potential benefits from shared services and that these can be as much about delivering improved resilience, flexibility, and quality of service as financial savings. However, the report also highlights the significant challenges and risks associated with setting up and maintaining shared services, and how often business cases can be affected by external factors as well as changes experienced by the partners themselves. The report concluded that it may be beneficial to have a strategy and possibly a systematic consideration of assessing and deciding on shared opportunities within West Berkshire Council. However, members should note that the process of conducting a review of the potential for shared service can be very resource intensive, potentially taking many months to complete, and can possibly be disruptive to the services involved. The report considers that there is a role for OSMC to maintain a watching brief on the existing shared services, which would be in addition to any governance arrangements already in place for individual shared services.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Gordon. This is actually a report commissioned by OSMC through the chair, through Councillor Law. So I'll come to him. But I think for me, it's an excellent summary document of the local arrangements that we have in place and the national picture with some case studies, so that you can see how other organisations are setting up their structures. And actually, I'd like it to be sent to all members of council, because I think as a summary document around our governance arrangements as a council, it really does tick the box of getting your head around what the council maybe has full control over and what we have as delegated services to other areas. So thank you for that, Gordon. I'm going to bring Councillor Law in first. I don't know if he does have anything in particular to say, but the report's him as the lead member. Councillor Law.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I got to endorse your comments about the comprehensiveness of the report. I think it's excellent and very, very informative. And I'd like to publicly congratulate the officers, and particularly Gordon, for pulling it all together. So thank you. I think your suggestion that we should send this to all members is a good one, and I would endorse that. As I read through it and looked at all the detail, there was just one little theme that came through to me, and maybe it was just to me, but it came through to me and I'm concerned about it. There seemed to be an awful lot of negativity when shared services were suggested among one or two services. I heard all the reasons why it couldn't happen, and frankly, in some of them, nothing at all as to what the long-term benefits might be. So I'm wondering, is there a little bit of a cultural element here that needs to be addressed?
Okay. Thank you for that, Councillor Law. I see I've got Councillor Vickers with his hand up.
Thank you, Chairman. I thought it was an excellent report. I'd certainly like to congratulate Gordon, who's pulled it together. I'm sure he learns a lot from it. And it's interesting because I know he worked previously for another Berkshire authority. So I'm sure it was very interesting for him to compare those two authorities. When I first started reading it, I thought I was slightly puzzled by the not intended to be a definitive list, is extremely comprehensive, and I'm wondering what perhaps might have been missed. But I guess it's a sort of he's sort of protecting himself, perhaps, can't guarantee that around everything, because it must have involved an awful lot of delving around. Now, I think, there's potentially a scrutiny task in here, and from such a wide-ranging report one would expect, and I find that the public protection partnership stands out as a very odd beast. It seems to only include parts of several services. The example that stands for me is the public health. And I would have thought that leads to certain service management issues. And then when you go on to see in paragraph 524, it talks about mistakes in establishing the public protection partnership, how it arose out of ad hoc opportunities. Then in para 533, there's a low employee attitude survey remarked upon. I'm all in favour of us doing as many shared services as we can. I was on the other side of the argument back in 1998 to Councillor Brooks. Jeff was on the county and I was a new councillor on the district, and I think all the parties actually were split between the county faction and the district faction. I felt that going to unitaries at the district level was a better democratic oversight, more local, but clearly there were always going to be problems with loss of resilience, and that's highlighted at several points in several of the examples in the report, that we have gained a lot of resilience, even perhaps where there weren't cost savings through doing shared services. My only other comment is around the democratic oversight. I mean, the fact that there are no proportionality rules applying with the democratic oversight of shared services, I think, is an issue that needs to be addressed. I mean, the ruling party here is the one that benefits at the moment, but I think, looking long term, where it might be another party that runs all the councils involved in public protection partners. So I'm not necessarily saying it's our party. Goodness knows, I hope it's not the third major party in the country. But I think that needs to be looked at. There needs to be opposition representation on that democratic body that oversees public partnerships generally, joint services rather generally. I think I've said enough for now. Thanks, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Vickers. Councillor Cole.
Well, it's interesting, really, because the one thing I really wanted to comment on was indeed the PPP. Because I've attended the JPPC, we'll call it, that supervises the PPP for the better part of a couple of years now. The shared services model used for the PPP works pretty well. I've also attended the board that runs building control, and you'll note that it's a board, so it's a different model. What I was going to ask was that this report be improved a bit, because mention of the 2018 report implies to me that much of what was recommended is yet to be. Sorry, I don't think that's the case. ICT, for example, gets a mention in the report. That certainly was an issue, but it's essentially resolved with a single system. There's one thing that's really missing from this report on the PPP. Because it's a shared service, they have been able to develop specialist expertise. For example, in trading standards. That would have been quite difficult for West Berks to do on its own. There is seriously real value there in the joint approach. There is, of course, a real issue now. PPP has got to do its business as usual, and the pandemic stuff, test and trace, is ramping up. That'll come to the PPP. And of course, Brexit. The latter is horribly quiet at the moment, but the end of the year is nigh. One example, nobody seems to know how import-export of food is going to work. Was it 6th October? this is one of the areas where business will come to the PPP for advice and so on. But yeah, this was a subject of discussion at this afternoon's review meeting. I can report that PPP management is well aware of it. They told us. Another past criticism, PPP in the past was not good at telling people what it did. A year or so ago, I had to tell Hungerford Town Council all about the Public Protection Partnership because the term meant nothing. In my view, the PPP has now learned to say what it does and to say something at least of what it's achieved. So for me, actually, the report could be updated a bit. If you turn to building control, on the other hand, it's a rather different story. It's a different model. It hasn't worked so well, but this one is coming to the end of its agreement period, and it is actively under review as to where we go from here. We do have to review shared services. If the current way is not working, then we have to look for another one. In my mind, that is the case here. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Dillon would appear to have dropped off. Councillor Law, could you pick up? I mean, it's not my job to tell you, but I think we'll be here forever if we just sit.
You're muted.
You're on mute, Alan.
I told him it was a tough job. He was doing so well as well, wasn't he? Let me see. Let me check the hands here. Who wants to say something? I've got Councillor Hurley.
Hello, good evening. A question. Do we have a quantification of the benefits of each of the shared services compared to what would be a baseline of, say, West Berkshire running those services themselves? How it compares sort of nationally in terms of the percentage saved for each service and annual benefit? Let me carry on. I asked because reading the report, it tells me what's being done, but it doesn't actually seem to tell me the benefits and the alternative, and therefore why it's performing well.
Okay. Okay. I've got Joseph. You want to say something? And then I've got Paul Anstey. Joseph first.
Yeah. Thank you, Chairman. So I just wanted to respond to a few of the points. So if I just take Councillor Hurley's one first, actually, and Paul might come in on this as well. There are some sort of value for money statistics that we can go back and compare with, have a look at how the service was before, etc. The difficulty is the longer the shared services go on for, the more difficult it is to try and work out what we might well have done if we had been on our own, for example. But we can go back and certainly for something like PPP, have a look at how the statistics have compared over the years. And I just want to pick up just a wider point, actually, which Councillor Law raised around the culture. Do we have a culture which is again shared services? And I would say, having been at West Berks before and then having come back and having seen a number of successful shared services and including an IT shared service, but also seeing a number of shared services which haven't been so successful and have gone back. I think the fundamental to me is, I think, firstly, you've got to make sure that you've got the right partner to begin with. Gordon's paper alluded to this, but sort of the alignment in the stars for that often can be quite difficult because of a variety of changes, often maybe at officer or at member level across different authorities. And I think that is something which can hinder the more wide scale sharing of services across a number of services with exactly the same council, because they're all being in different places across those different services. And then if a different council has quite different arrangements, especially when you look at their frontline services, it can, that undoubtedly can be a hindrance towards, it doesn't mean it's a total impediment, but it can be a hindrance towards those towards an effective shared service. I think the other thing as well at the moment is around the local government reorganisation agenda as well, and to see what happens there. I think that in the short term will probably be a bit of a hindrance to the shared service agenda. Now that will in the longer term right itself when things bed down. And I think it's the other fundamental is ensuring that, you know, for a successful shared service, there's that long-term vision, certainly from both partners to begin with, that they both want to commit to it for a long period of time, because I think those successful shared services, you know, I think as the report highlights, they take effort to get up and running, and that benefit, I think, really does increase when there's that long-term commitment from both partners.
Thank you, Joseph. I see Councillor Dillon's back up again. Councillor Dillon, I've got, in fact, Paul Anstey and then Lynn Doherty in the queue. I suggest that let them have a word, and then I'll hand back to you again. Obviously,
that's the irony, isn't it?
It's the irony, yeah. You did so well, as I said. Paul, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, so just to pick up on a couple of questions, really. In terms of benchmarking and the availability of data for regulatory services, which the Public Protection Partnership covers, that's quite a tricky thing to quantify. Obviously, in the business case that we developed to put the partnership together, we had to come up with some characteristics that the three local authorities shared in order that we could try and make sure that each partner felt that it was getting value for money in what it was contributing to the partnership. And the difficulties just in the time that we've existed as a partnership is that inevitably, as soon as you set that baseline, demand patterns change, and to try and compare whether or not you're getting good value for money with what you started to what you're getting at the end can be quite tricky. And I'll just give you one example. When we started out as Public Protection Partnership, there were some local authorities who would say, for example, we don't have a private sector housing problem. So the answer to that is, if you go looking for it and you find it, do you do something about it, or do you just carry on the status quo on the basis that that was how the funding was set up in the first place? Or do you change and adapt your style as you go through? And that's the strength of the partnership arrangement that we've got, is that each of the local authorities can have a grown-up conversation as partners, rather than it being seen as a contract, which some of the other shared services that are referred to in this report and that have been seen up and down the country, that's where they tend to fall down, is that they can be experienced by either party, the host, who tends to be the one that employs the staff, or the client, can be made to feel like a bit like a contract, which is, you know, if I say to you, I'm going to deliver 100 food inspections, and then next year 20 businesses start up, which means I need to deliver 120 inspections. The contractor approach to that would be to say, well, you need to pay me for those extra 20 inspections. Whereas actually, in reality, the relationships between local authorities in a partnership is that you sit down and say, right, okay, well, we need to blend our offer to deal with that 20 premises, and we'll look at where other service areas can be flexed, and we can make recruitment decisions in a managed way to meet that new demand. And that happens every year. So what I would say is that in terms of Scrutiny and the way that the partnership has grown, is that, you know, we're on the record now as having probably a dozen joint Public Protection Committee meetings where those sorts of issues have been able to be thrashed out, and we've got to the point now where we've got agreed methodologies for how to deal with, you know, cost recovery. We've had some very detailed conversations about fees and charges and how that impacts on the budget setting process. There are many things that have come out of what we've done in the Public Protection Partnership that have meant we're able to go and talk to other local authorities, other public sector bodies. We offer services to fire service, neighbouring councils, because we've set ourselves up in a way that means that, you know, growth, when those challenges come along, we've got the specialisms that other local authorities have lost. So I just say that the benefits are sometimes quite difficult to quantify, but certainly from my perspective, having run them now for probably best part of 10 years, is that when it comes to events like the one we're dealing with at the moment, there is no substitute for scale and resilience. and we wouldn't have been able to operate in the way that we do if we weren't in one of these partnerships. Thank you.
Then, Peter.
Thank you, Councillor Law. I just wanted to start actually by thanking the Chairman for commissioning this report. I found it a really useful report of bringing all of this together in one place. So thank you for that. I hadn't seen it previously, so it was really a useful report to read through. So thank you, Councillor Law. I just wanted to make a couple of comments with regards to why we do these things. And Councillor Law, you made a comment about some of the negativity that you felt was there. I think whenever we look at shared services, the number one motivator has to be that there's a genuine benefit to the residents of West Berkshire, and that needs to be the driver. Now, that might be we have more resilience in the service. It might be that we save costs, but we have to always keep that in mind as we balance this whole idea between localism and really getting to the needs of our residents versus anybody else's residents. So I just want to make sure that we focus on the genuine benefit to the residents of West Berkshire. And the example I would give you, which was the one that I was involved with, which is in this paper, is Adopt Berkshire, which has become Adopt Thames Valley. And that was a real positive example where absolutely our officers embraced it, because having a wider pool of people to adopt within the area that we could look at was a certain benefit to children that had to go through that process. So I think you could see a real genuine benefit. So I just wanted to say I'm really, really pleased to see this report here this evening. I think there's some really good stuff in it. I'm particularly interested in some of the reports towards the end from the LGA, what shared services have been done elsewhere, in what size, and what experiences they've had. And I think that's something we can certainly be looking at as for the future. But just to thank you for bringing that to the OSMC this evening. So thank you, Chairman.
Back to you, Lee.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So apologies for the internet falling over there. The only couple of comments I had, and I appreciate they may have been picked up during the debate, was actually Alan's one around that cultural piece. And I read in the document the pushback in particular from IT. Yeah, I see on page 43 when it has the count of partnerships by type, that ICT and digital services, there are 38 partnerships in existence. So there are organisations that have got over some of those hurdles that we see outlined in the paper, and that would be my challenge back to our ICT teams, is really evidence those hurdles rather than maybe some sort of feels a bit more statements being made the way it's recorded here. And then the other one for me is 5.104. It's within regards to the LGGS, and it picks up on a point that Councillor Vickers made about proportionality. And it actually says by having the opposition involved there, it actually depoliticised it. You know, and I think everyone becomes councillors because they want to be involved to help shape services. And actually, if you're a new councillor coming to West Berkshire, you know, there are lots of shared services now where you might not get the same influence that you would expect to have as a councillor. And so I'd like to see that addressed through proportionality as a principle going forward, because for me, it's regardless of political colour. You know, it's a democratic principle that we should uphold. Okay, the recommendations in the paper was for us to note the report and keep a watching brief. And it also recognises the impact of COVID and it's the work that causes. So I'm happy with the conclusions there. Happy to propose just from the chair here that we note the report. Does that find a seconder? I believe it does, yeah. Councillor Hurley, saw his hand. Thank you, and all those in favour? Excellent, thank you very much. And Gordon, once again, thanks for a great report. Okay, moving on then to item number 8. This is the performance Q1 report. Catalin?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. The performance report for Q1 is presented to the OSMC to provide assurance that the core business and then the council priorities for improvement measures are being managed effectively. Looking at the context, the report covers the period April-June 2020, and As we all are aware, this is when the response to COVID-19 crisis included the national lockdown and the most severe impact. However, the prompt response at the local level helped to maintain strong service performance, as it is highlighted in the report. At the time of writing this report, and it's a few weeks before this tonight's meeting, the challenges to tackle COVID-19 started to be evident, even if not all the externally produced data was available, and the longer-term trends were yet to emerge. However, data produced by the council, such as the town center footfall, and parking charges levels, and other items that we include into the influencer measures, illustrate the immediate impact of the actions taken to reduce the spread of the virus. The council has put in place measures to mitigate the local impact, and some of these measures to support local economy did translate in some performance areas to achieve a level below the target. And then that's the only highlighted measure in the summary, in the executive summary of the report, to note in particular the percentage of non-domestic rates collection. That was as a result of a conscious decision, and the exception report provide details and some updates. Impact is unfortunately evident when considering the social care contextual measures. And in here, sadly, we are looking at the reduction of adult social care long-term service beneficiaries, some reductions in safeguarding inquiries. The Q1 results also evidence the efforts made by the services to find ways to continue the business as usual delivery to local residents despite the unprecedented circumstances. An example to illustrate this is the way the library service managed to switch to more online and electronic items borrowing rather than the physical items being borrowed. So quite a significant increase if you look at the influencer measure data and chart. This focus to ensure business as usual delivery of services to residents was supplemented by targeted measures to mitigate the impact of COVID. Together, this translated into the majority of performance measures reflecting the core business areas being on track to achieve the target set for this financial year. Even when looking at the more challenging performance measures that relate to areas for improvement over the 4-year cycle of the council strategy, again, the majority of the performance measures are on track. In this area, the report reflects the suggestion made at the previous OSMC meeting. Thank you for that suggestion. And then includes a detailed update on the strategic goals category of measures that are under each priority for improvement. In addition, we also worked on the format based on your members' suggestions, and we try to simplify the charts in the report and the structure of the report, so to make it as easy to focus on the performance reported in there rather than the format. I will conclude, Chairman, by highlighting that the Overview and Scrutiny Management Commission is asked to note the report, including the recommendations approved by the Executive. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you for that, Kathleen. And open the floor up to any questions or comments. And this has been to Executive already once as well, so there'll be many members who would have commented on this in a different guise. Any comments? Councillor Brooks.
Kathleen may have mentioned this in his introduction, and forgive me if I missed it, but on page, I'll just check the page number, 69, ensuring the well-being of older people and vulnerable adults, the percentage of West Berkshire Council provider services inspected by the CQC and rated as good or better. We're quite a long way off there, quite a long way off. Can we get more explanation, please? We're at, what are we at? 66.7%, England overall 84%. Now, forgive me if you referred to it, Kathleen, but I think that one is really sticking out for me.
Yes, thank you. I will highlight the details included into the exception reports for that area. Indeed, I haven't mentioned it tonight here because we reported at Q4 the same situation. We have a very small number of services, care homes and adult social care services that are inspected. And you can see on page 89, that's where we have the details. On page 89 is the exception report. We have only 6 care homes, adult social care inspected services. And with the small numbers, if you have 2 that are not good or outstanding in the areas of safety in the CQC inspection, the percentages drop quite quickly. It was mentioned, and I think it's mentioned in this exception report, that unfortunately, despite all the efforts made by the services to achieve improvements in the 2 care homes that are mentioned there, including by working with external consultants and to provide improvement strategies, not only for the 2 care homes that are not as good as we would like at the inspection. Despite all these improvements, Care Quality Commission, the inspectors, they are not conducting their regular inspections to be able to come and to see and to reassess and hopefully to give us the better rating that we aspire and that we work to achieve. And as a result, I'm afraid we are stuck with this situation for a few quarters until new inspections are conducting. But we need then to ask ourselves, of course, about the assurance and the CQC. They are conducting some types of assessments remotely, and they have not expressed any further concerns or any new concerns from what information they managed to access. So I'm afraid we will have probably to report the same situation for a few more months until the CQC normal inspections resume.
Okay, thank you for that, Kathleen. Councillor Brooks, any other comments that you had?
Well, we need to look at that and keep that under review, and I'm sure the leader of council, Councillor Doherty, will be doing that, because yes, we got to wait for the next inspections, but let's hope that they have improved. And although we've only got a small number of homes, you know, a third, 2 out of 6. Let's aim for the stars here and get none out of 6 that fall foul of the inspection. So let's watch it very carefully, Chairman, please.
Okay, thank you. I see Councillor Doherty's unmuted herself. I didn't know if she wanted to come in on that.
I was just going to come back to Councillor Brooks there, just to reassure him that there was a very comprehensive improvement plan put in place, and I think it actually came through executive as well, and that Councillor Bridgman is keeping a very close eye on that. So I'm quite assured that even though we won't get the inspection for some time, that the work has been done and is ongoing. So just to give you that assurance, Councillor Brooks.
Lovely, thank you for that, Councillor Doherty. Councillor Hurley, next, please.
Yeah, thanks. Just picking up on Councillor Brooks' fantastic forensic knowledge. At the bottom of page 68, the non-domestic rates collected as a percentage of non-domestic rates due seems to be even further off the mark than the one that was just highlighted. Is that just me, or is that something that has, you know, not gone very well at all, please?
I'll bring Councillor McKinnon in first of all, Kathleen, the portfolio holder.
Thanks very much, Chairman. And yeah, Gareth, that's the decision we made back at the start of the pandemic to defer payments in April and May until later in the year. So we'd absolutely expect to be out there in the red, and it's actually quite a good thing that it is.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Law.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to say it's great to see the 8 key core strategies included in this report. but I'm going to say the same thing I said at the last OSMC. The very on page, the bottom of page 66, the very last target, supporting local employers, and the target is retain 10. That was not the case. The target was to ensure that all 10 are visited and have meetings with senior executives from the council, senior officers and senior councillors should meet with the top 10 employers at least once a year, but probably once every 6 months. Whatever that target was, because that was the target that we all suggested. The target that you've got highlighted here, retain under 10 or more is not a realistic measurable target. Let's get this right. The action was meet with these people on a regular basis.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Law. I think, yeah, I can appreciate retaining those top 10 businesses is not all within the power of an administration.
Sure.
So, I mean, but probably happy to leave that to you, Chairman, and to the leader to tidy up outside, ready for the next quarter report.
Thank you. I just wanted to report that back because we did say this at the last meeting. So if by the time the next one comes along, that could be changed, it would be appreciated.
Thank you for drawing that out. Are there anybody else wish to comment on the paper? Okay. So the comment just from me around the domestic abuse, it was one that we were anticipating, I think, at the beginning of lockdown. And we didn't see it at the beginning, and there was some relief, I think, but we've seen that number climb back up, and we've seen the local authority respond and work in partnership. So Lynn, it's just a question really around, have you got any news you can share around the impact of that partnership and if it's starting to deliver results?
I think following this, because I raised similar concerns, as you're aware, Councillor Dillon, at the executive, and I had a conversation with Thames Valley Police on this as well, so that I have followed it up and been talking about partnership. So there's certainly work afoot and there's additional work being put in place. So I'm quite comfortable that we're looking at it in a partnership format for a safer communities partnership.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Law, have you got your hand up again, or is it a previous one?
It was the previous one.
Previous one. No, it's okay. Okay, so I'm happy to propose the recommendations from the chair, that we note the report and the actions for the executive. Does that find a seconder? Councillor Masters, thank you. And all those in favour? Thank you, that carries. Okay, moving on then. Item number 9, the revenue financial performance for Q1. And we go to Joseph first to introduce this item.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. So this, like the paper beforehand, went to the executive at its last meeting, but it sets out the Q1 position, which is showing a underspend forecast of just over £500,000 for the financial year. And the big level of estimation in here and uncertainty is around the impact of COVID-19 on the council's finances. So there's a section in there on some of the uncertainties. Now, I can bring the committee up to date, and we'll have further information in the Q2 report. But we have looked at some of our estimates, and those cost estimates will potentially will be revised downwards. And also in the last few weeks, the government have confirmed the income compensation scheme as well, which will help support further the financial position for the council in respect of COVID and where there's been lost income. So that is the short summary to this paper, Chairman.
Thank you for that, Joseph. And any questions or comments? Councillor Simpson.
Yes, I noticed the 996 of movement on reserves, of which I think it was the second appendix, 232 in legal services and corporate support had been put through without requiring approval. Can we have an explanation, please?
Joseph.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Just in respect of having gone through without approval, could you sort of point me, Councillor, to where it states that?
Yes, just a moment. I have to whiz down the. Cool.
there any other comments while Councillor Simpson's looking for the relevant part of the document?
Let's see if I can find it on my paper.
No one's going to help you, Garth, and fill some time.
No.
No, is it
It's,
I can see where appendix. I can see where Appendix B is.
Budget B, budget changes. It's page 108.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Oh, right at the last page. Yeah.
Yeah, and it seemed to be quite a large proportion of, and all in corporate, legal, and strategic support. Seemed a high proportion of changes not needing approval.
Yes, I have to look at the exact detail of those environments, but there'll be, as you can see, they net off to zero at the end. So there's environments in between different budget headings. A lot of it is one-off money that we put into the budget for 2021 in respect to the investment in the council strategy. But I'll look into the detail and we'll respond, Chairman.
I'm sorry, I've got a very bad internet connection and I didn't hear that. So
So he'll come back to you, Garth, with some detailed information.
Thank you.
Okay, lovely. Councillor Hurley.
Sorry, there seems to be a general underspend across all the directorates in Q1. And my question is that an actual saving, or is that an inaccuracy in the forecasting for the financial year? Because it seems to be a trend when you look at it on the surface.
Joseph?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I know Councillor Mickens got his hand up as well.
Yeah.
So thank you, Councillor, for the question. And the forecasts do fluctuate year on year. So it is looking at how officers are forecasting their budget for the rest of the year against the original budget, and quite a bit of the volatility in there is because things have changed as a result of COVID, as well as things just will always sort of change on a day-to-day basis. Depending on what activity is going up and down, but you can see some of the big changes in there are some of the COVID impacts that we're seeing on adult social care, especially around some of those forecasts that we have lower numbers of people in care than we thought at the time that the budget was set. Now, the budget was set a few weeks before the COVID-19 outbreak, and so that has put more volatility in, as has this interaction with some of the COVID funding that we've got from central government as well, where we are offsetting some of our costs as well.
Councillor Hurley, do you want to come back onto that? And then I'll bring Councillor McKinnon in afterwards.
Yeah, quite, just again an observation. If the budget was set pre-COVID and we're coming in under, it almost implies that that's a saving, a financial saving. Which I don't think is probably right, to be honest, at the council as a whole, but that's the way it looks on the surface. That's all. And I'd be curious to know what the forecast is for Q2 as well. Then. Yeah.
So you're quite right. Overall, we will have. If everything stays equal from that Q1 forecast, we will have that underspend. So it would be a surplus if everything stayed exactly the same as you articulated.
Okay, that's fine. I wanted to highlight that, but it's not what one would expect. That's all. But thank you, Chairman. Obviously, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor McKinnon. Did you want to come in?
Yeah, thanks very much, Chairman. Yeah, I would echo everything that Joseph just said there. Just looking at the directorates, just to respond to Councillor Hurley, the People Directorate has the big underspend. That's where the adult social care underspend comes in, which, for reasons already discussed, it's not entirely unexpected. With COVID, resources is over, though. I wouldn't say it's an underspend across the board. And although Place has an underspend of 101,000 out of a budget of 31 million, I mean, you might not have hit, if that was a dartboard, you might not have hit the bullseye, but you hit the green ring around it. That is almost exactly bang on. So I would just question slightly the characterization, but of course, overall, the underspend is there.
Okay, thank you. I'll bring Joseph back in, and then I've got Councillor Brooks.
Yeah, I suppose just to also thank you, Chairman, just to reflect, Councillor, that I accept your point that you wouldn't necessarily expect us to be forecasting that underspend. However, the funding we've had from central government in respect of COVID has been quite substantial, and has certainly helped us. And as a council, we have had quite reasonable amounts of funding from central government. And then on top of that, we've had this income compensation scheme as well, which has certainly really helped us to deal with some of the pressures from the pandemic.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Brooks.
Yes, first thing I'll say is, and with Nick Carter on the call, resources were never overspent under Nick Carter's tutelage and control. So Joseph, you know, you've got big boots to fill there. I know it's a performance report, and perhaps Ross and myself could talk offline, because if I look at page 100, what we've got is we call it a service forecast in the lilac table at the top, you know, boxes at the top. And we see Q1 and we see the adult social care 590 underspent as at the end of Q1. I get all that. But then, of course, the next three columns, Q2, Q3, Q4, service forecast, nothing. We're not reforecasting. When I've run companies, I've got a quarterly position, and then I've got to start saying, what's the next quarter going to do? And what's the quarter after that? And what's the quarter after that? And all we seem to be doing is saying, well, that's where we are. And, you know, we can't really tell you what's going on next few quarters. And it's, I don't want to get into the detail of it now, but I think we should be asking our service areas to say, okay, we know where you are now, but you're not going to stay like that. What's the next quarter look like? And don't say zero, because frankly, that's not how budgets work. But, you know, we have different ways of doing it, and I'm happy to take it offline. But it's peculiar to me, coming largely from running businesses in the private sector.
Okay, great. I'm going to come to Councillor Law first, and then I'll finish with Councillor McKinnon and hopefully move on to the next item then. So Councillor Law, please.
Yeah, thank you. Two things. One, first of all, to Councillor Hurley. For the last 9 out of the last 10 odd years, Q1 in adult social care and children's services has usually been the opposite. It's usually been the surprise overspend. And that's an overspend forecast for the end of the year. Back to Councillor Brooks's point. Councillor Brooks, we changed that in my time as lead finance member. It's a forecast. So unless it's changed back again, the services were always asked, tell me what you're forecasting for the end of the year. And that's why it says forecast there. They used to talk about projections, but now it's they're not forecasting, here's Q2, 3. They are saying, and that chart says this, if nothing changes, if we don't take any mitigation measures, if nothing changes, that's how we currently look as if we're going to end the year. You may not agree. Well,
okay. Let's
agree that's right, but that's the way it is.
Okay. Yeah, I know that the concern we had at quarter or the 9+3 forecast at the end of last financial year was having an underspend that close to the end of the year. You shouldn't be forecasting as well. So, you know, as you get closer to your forecast position, you should be fairly accurate with it. Okay, I'll bring Councillor McKinnon in now.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chairman. Yeah, Councillor Law kind of beat me to the punch. That's, and thanks, Councillor Brooks, for those comments. That's not a quarterly forecast as to where we're going to be at the end of each quarter. We're at the end of Q1 now. What you see in that column is the estimate of, you know, as at the end of Q1, where we think we're going to be at the end of the year. So that being the case, you can't have anything for quarters 2, 3, and 4. Those will be populated as we go through the year. You know, that's the case. So I can see you're going to come back in and we can do this all night. And I'm always happy to talk to you offline, Councillor Brooks, as you say. But I'll leave it there.
It's not a forecast, then, is it? It's saying, look, I'm 580k underspent, overspent, doesn't matter, at the end of Q1. And if nothing changes, that's it. That's what it'll be at the end of the year. And what you've got to be pressing on the service areas is to say, no. What changes you've got to make to bring it back in line? And are you forecasting that?
Okay, I think that offline, but yeah, and I think they are two slightly different. I mean, actually, you have got the forecast position and you forecast, and that's what you expect your underspend to be at the end of the year. And then you're quite right. Then it's down to councillors and officers to try and get that as close to zero as you can, whether it's particularly when it's an overspend.
We're having a violent agreement.
We are quite. So are we happy then? I'm happy to propose that report from the chair. Finds a seconder from Councillor Hurley. Thank you. All those in favour of accepting that? Excellent. And moving on then to item 10, the capital performance report. Over to Joseph for that one. Thanks. I've moved on my screen.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, so again, paper went to executive before, so showing a relatively large amount of the capital programme being completed. We will be doing quite a big revision to the Q2 forecast to see what further has happened in the last few months. Again, there will be an impact because of COVID on some of the construction projects, but a large number of successful schemes still moving through. You know, some of them at a different pace to how we originally wanted. Some new schemes as highlighted in there as well, with the request on the active travel fund to the executives. So again, some continuing changes coming through as you go through what is a very different financial year to normal.
Thank you, Joseph. And any comments or questions from the Commission? Councillor Simpson?
Yes, I was surprised at how low the percentage impact was on the CapEx. You can see that on page 1112, only roughly 10% down in a period of COVID. I think 5.1 is what I fixed on, that there's a future risk on quoted costs because of failures by contractors and requotes. And that's what caught my eye. I don't know whether Joseph has any further comments on that, please.
Thank you. Joseph, do you want to come back on that?
Yes, I think the main one has been sort of articulated mainly actually in the last financial year around Highwood Copse and the impact there, and so that has been adjusted for in the capital programme going ahead. Of course, there will be other impacts as well because of where we are at the moment in the pandemic as well. But we haven't seen anything further impacting on our ability to deliver the capital programme, but we'll keep a very close eye on that in the coming weeks and months.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hurley? No. Councillor Vickers?
Yeah, just caught my eye the mention of in para 4.3, the transport budget underspend is due to some section 106 not being received. Any more detail about what section 106 from, where and why?
Joseph, I suspect you won't have that detail, but
no, I'm afraid. Apologies, Chairman. No, I don't have it to hand, but I can find out from colleagues and respond to the councillor.
Lovely, thank you. Any other points, Councillor Vickers?
No.
No, thank you. Councillor Hurley?
Sorry, I was just reading something. In 5.7, the projects across the transport programme have forecast underspends due to delays in commencing projects through the national COVID lockdown. That's understandable, but my question is, to what extent is there re-estimating, reforecasting to take inflation, increased construction costs based on the original project budgets, such that we don't overstretch ourselves and get exposed going forward through these delays?
Okay, I think you dropped out there, but you were talking about then being overexposed, linked to those interest rate rises or inflation rise,
prolongation costs. Are we retaining the estimates for projects, or are we revising them through delays?
Thank you. Joseph?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor, for the question. In respect of that one, each project when it starts should have some form of contingency in it as well, and should be making some forecasts in respect to inflation as well. Now, again, it will depend on how long that project is, and I think previously when there is a project delay, absolutely right, that is when you start to see some inflation costs come through. If it's over a really large number of a period of years and there are delays, then there will be some adjustments into future financial years, asking for more budget to reflect that if inflation has jumped up so much.
If I may, I just suggest, because of my day job, it's something that I engage with local authorities quite a lot on, and it's something that catches people out. That a year or two delay can significantly change a budget, and it probably needs to be recognised that you can't roll over X million from one year to the next and expect the same result. So I'd really sort of suggest that needs to be looked at for CapEx projects going forward, so we don't get into difficulty.
And I think actually, Councillor Haley, we saw that with Highwood Copse. The second version, I think, was a more expensive build cost because of raw material increases as well, actually, from when those two contracts were first offered.
On some of our big projects, we can estimate every 6 months because inflation and movements in markets can make significant changes. That's all.
Well, thanks for that contribution. Are there any other members wanting to comment? No. Okay. The recommendation is just to note it, but it's also to note the additional expenditure around the Emergency Active Travel Fund, and it's my standard type of complaint really about papers and timeliness. Item 2C says a further application is to be submitted in August 2020. We're sat here on the 6th of October considering this paper. It could have had a relevant update in there about it. I know it's looking back at a previous quarter, but you're talking about money going forward. So I would ask that we get those type of things just updated. Okay, I'm happy to propose from the chair that we note that. Does that find a seconder? Councillor Masters, thank you. All those in favour? Excellent, that's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on then. Item 11 is the West Berkshire Council Forward Plan. And if any members wish for the Commission to consider any of those. Does anybody have any requests? Does the executive have any requests of us, of any of this on here, that they would like us to look at before it gets to them? No, not at this time. I suspect it's probably gone through with Alan. Lynn?
Well, no, I would like to catch up on some of the consultation strategies coming forward as well. I think that would be really useful. But I haven't had a chance to speak to Councillor Law about those yet.
Okay, good. Yeah, because I must admit, when I was looking through this, I was thinking yes. But,
yes, I was
conscious on those
conscious
strategies.
There's a few large strategies coming forward. It would be good to get your views on.
Good, thank you. And any other members? Alan, sorry, Councillor Law.
Yes, Lynn just said exactly what I was going to say, and we need to have a look at these. And obviously involving yourself, Lee, need to look at these in terms of what can we get ahead and get proactive on to help the executive as well.
Yeah. Okay.
We need to do that in the next 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay, and I take it from the floor, there's no other comments regarding the forward plan here. No. Okay. Normally on an agenda at OSMC, we have the work plan that hasn't carried on to this agenda this time. But I'm sure if there's any issues that you want OSMC to consider in the standard way, if you email the chairman, then he'll be able to consider those in relation to the work plan. And I think it'd be good if we had it as a standing item on the agenda, so that there's always that opportunity to raise something to OSMC at its formal commission meetings.
Yeah, well, it is a standard item. I missed that actually, as to why it's not on. I can tell you that having conversations with Gordon, there's nothing changed from last time.
Lovely, thank you. We don't require item 12, which was the exclusion of the press and public in relation to the shared services report. So with that, I think that takes us to the end of the meeting. So thank you everyone for your attendance. Thank you to the officers for attending, and have a good evening.